Let's go negative. Biggest disappointment.
Yeah. So if I'm going to go for biggest disappointment, this is maybe going to sound a little cold, and I don't intend it to be because this isn't a production biggest disappointment. For me, it was the emotional letdown of Trey Sermon. Just having fought through the idea of being in a doghouse, being the presumptive second string running back, and then as a shock to most fans, I believe, not to even be active the first week, and then to fight through, put a solid week of practice in, and then come out clearly revved up. And I will say, that I believe a little too revved up because of having to go through that process, because of potentially being put in the doghouse by Kyle. Again, I'm not wild about this entire idea of having a doghouse. I feel like human beings are capable of communication to a level where if you're unhappy with someone, like hash it out, sit down man to man, get it squared away. These guys are too talented to have a message sent by sitting them some week when you see the talent on the field. So Sermon coming out, a ball of energy, and then that terrible injury, to me, that was just a real letdown. I am thrilled to see that it looks as if he's trending in the correct direction this week. He may clear the concussion protocol and be active for the game on Sunday. I think that that's a big plus if he is, but that was the biggest disappointment for me, was not getting to see what Trey can do.
Right.
Sermon, that is. The other Trey as well, but Sermon as well.
Watching Robinson Hill is greater than Thursday Night Football. My man, Amin the Dream.
Amin knows what's up.
Yeah, dude. That's the ultimate compliment. I appreciate that. Don't you think Kyle did that before the season, Rob? So I'm guessing he's talking about Trey Sermon in the doghouse.
Yes. And I would suspect that prior to week one, that there was some conversation that took place, but we don't know that. We don't get the access behind the scenes on those conversations that are taking place. And so we have to look at the tea leaves and sort of read it. My guess is that Sermon didn't know he was going to be inactive. It seemed like a surprise across the board.
Yeah. And I think that Sermon was picked to be paired with Trey Lance. And
that's entirely possible.
Trey Lance, and I think that Shanahan expected Trey Lance to beat out Jimmy convincingly, because that's what he needed to do for Shanahan to be able to start Trey with how well Jimmy's beloved by the team in that locker room. And none of those things happened. So I think that's why Trey isn't playing, because he doesn't fit Jimmy Garoppolo as well as he fits Trey Lance as far as the style of running back he is. So I think that it's more of a matchup thing. But if he does end up getting through the protocol in time for the game, I expect a heavy dose of Trey Sermon as well, because we're going to get into keys later on, but we all know the 49ers, if their running game is good against Green Bay, they're in a really good position.
Yes, they are.
My disappointment is I'm not going to put it on a player. I'm going to just say I'm disappointed in trying to figure out how to word this the best. The lack of diversity in the passing game. And what I mean by that is I see all of these high-powered offenses. Like, you see what Tom Brady's doing. And he has 3 stud receivers and a stud tight end. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Gronk. You look at those 4, like, those names are incredible that's what he has on offense. And in week 1, Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin went off along with Gronk. In week 2, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Gronk went off. And I'm sure in week 3, it's going to be another combination of 3. So 3 guys at all times are going off. Now, I don't expect the 49ers offense to be as high-powered as Tampa Bay. But it's not like our weapons are terrible either. And the fact that only Debo is the one that's shining in our passing game, I think our tight end could be just as good as Rob Gronkowski. George Kittle isn't that bad, right? A lot of people think he might be the best tight end in the league, right?
I'm told he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's not showing out, right? Everybody that has him in fantasy is pretty disappointed. Brandon
Yes.
Ayuk. I mean, last year against the Eagles in the same game against the same team, he probably pulled off one of the most electric offensive moves to score a touchdown that I had ever seen a 49er player do.
That was
He's pretty
legit.
good. There's this guy, Trent Sherfield, who we just saw eating people alive in the preseason, who everybody's talking about. This guy could be as good as Antonio Brown, right? Other receivers that are like well respected. He's nowhere to be seen. So the fact that we have all of these weapons and we're just not seeing them utilized, to me, that's the biggest disappointment. Because I mean, I understand maybe in week 1 because the running game was just going insane. So, Mitchell was balling out. So, okay, if we don't get the passing game going like crazy, I get it. We're just pounding the ball and we're scoring points. This game, we weren't pounding the ball very well and we weren't scoring a lot of points. So why not get these guys involved, man? Really disappointed in the fact that we're not seeing the diversity. I know Steve Supremo said, Sherfield and Jennings got TDs. Those were their only catches in those games. So and they were, goal line type opportunities. So to me, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for these guys to get, at least 3 to 5 targets, give them a chance to, get the ball in their hands and let's see what these guys can do.
Yeah, for everyone aside from Debo, who had 6 catches for 93 yards, the rest of the entire wide receiver core had 4 catches for 32 yards. That is not the type of production that you want to see out of what could be an elite group. I would agree that that's concerning. And you wonder if part of that comes from the type of game that it was. It was a very grimy, gritty game, and you could almost sense, in my mind, Shanahan tightening up a bit and going back to the old school mentality of, I'm not going to allow my team to make the mistake that loses us this game. If we can just remain conservative, remain consistent, body blows through the remainder of the game, we're the better team, we're going to come out on top. It seemed that he shied away from anything that could put us in a precarious position.
Right. And I get that, but when, right? It didn't happen week 1. It's not happening week 2. We'll see. I mean, if it happens against Green Bay, but eventually we're going to have to see a team that could put up some points. And eventually, if the defense sees you're only handing the ball off to Mitchell and throwing the ball to Debo, that's a pretty easy fix, I guess, for defenses. Eventually, we got to get, guys that aren't getting the ball. And, you might be right, but I'm just disappointed by it. Not just for anything else other than I really expected more from this offense. I'm glad that we're winning, but I don't want to just win. Like Tampa Bay last year, they didn't look like the best team in the league throughout the regular season. They got blown out, in a couple games. They didn't look like the offense was on par. But Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and Leftwich had a plan. They're like, we're going to use this regular season to get better and to get this offense to where we need it. So, hey, you're going to make some mistakes. Hey, you're going to lose some close games, or you might get blown out a few times because the offense isn't going very well. But how did that turn out for them when they turned into the playoffs, and how their beginning of this year is turning out? They are unstoppable, and that offense is running on all cylinders. And I really wish that the 49ers were doing that, and like, hey, let's not just try to think of it in these week by week boxes where we're just trying to get this win. Let's look at the big picture, because I don't think it's just about winning games and making the playoffs. Maybe it is. Maybe Kyle Shanahan's thinking that, look, I need to make the playoffs this year, so I need to win every single game because I haven't made the playoffs 3 of the 4 years that I've been here. Maybe that is his mentality. So he is like, I just need to make the playoffs so that everybody gets off of my back. But if I'm thinking bigger picture and we have a chance to win the Super Bowl, which we all thought going into the season that this roster had the capability of winning a Super Bowl, well, the bigger picture is we can't just dink and dunk and win games every single game. We can technically, but eventually when we get into the playoffs or we play these better teams, if we're not on 100 as far as we could do multiple things, we're just going to lose. And it's not going to be necessarily because we don't have the talent. It's going to be because we're on step A and all these other teams have already gone through, step J of their playbook and gotten really good at it. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I kind of look at it.
It makes perfect sense. And while I disagree in the idea that I'm not disappointed with the way in which we came out with a victory on Sunday, I do agree with you in the sense that we need to be progressing as an offense to a point where we are putting up significant points. When you look at this division and the games that we're going to have to play against the teams within our own division and the games that we're going to have to play if we make it to the playoffs, I think that it's going to require an offense that can put up some points. It's going to require a bit of that blowing the top off on a couple of games and not just through the run game, in particular after having lost our home run hitter. I think that Jimmy will need to take the next step if we're going to get to that level, or we're going to have to see it from Trey Lance. And to your point, it has to be practiced. It's not something where the light just comes on. Now, I will also follow that up by saying Kyle is a gamesman, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see him open up the playbook on Sunday night underneath the lights, because I think he likes the attention.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think we're going to need it because, Green Bay's offense is pretty good. So, but our defense is really stout. So that's why I think they could get away with it. And unfortunately, it's kind of like a crutch because the defense is keeping teams, scoring very low. So you can get away with just kind of winning by a touchdown or scoring 17 to 24 points, especially when the defense is, as stout as the 49ers defense has been these last 2 weeks. Harold Murillo agreed. I would like to see a more explosive offense, but it's not our identity. It's not the identity of the offense. Their identity is more of a run down your throat style. I think it's more on Kyle, however. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, look, I don't expect us to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't expect us to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where Jimmy Garoppolo is getting 5 touchdowns in a game. But 2, 3, can we get, on average, 24 to 30 points per game? I think that, here's what my issue is why would these skilled position players come to the 49ers if you're never going to get showcased, right? And even a guy like Ayuk, who it's not like we believe, we have hope. No, we've seen this guy be electric all in his rookie season. For him to have 1 catch through 2 games and 2 targets through 2 games, averaging 1 target and half a catch, Rob, that is, I don't know, I don't know how we could be okay with that in my mind. That's like if Tom Brady and Chris Godwin is having no impact. Can you imagine Chris Godwin having half a catch a game? Not saying Brandon Ayuk is Chris Godwin, but I'm saying the talent level, you would expect a lot more. So I don't know.
And I think it's something to keep an eye on, right? It's something that's concerning to this point. If they flip the switch and it changes against the Packers and moving forward, then we can just say, well, it was the matchups. But we're only 2 games in, and if the trend does continue, then you have to look at, well, what the hell's going on here? Because to your point, the talent seems to be there. I do think that a lot of things within the Shanahan offense operate off of the run, right? All of the looks come from the same sets, and you can do the same play that's a toss versus a play action shot deep, and that's what gets defenses off guard. If the run game is not successful, and if you don't have the horses in the stable to actually be able to move the ball, that presents a different set of issues for this Kyle Shanahan offense, right? You don't have the run game to base everything off of. I think that it was a matchup conundrum with the Philadelphia Eagles, but we'll see on Sunday whether we have a similar setup.
Right. And this is the argument that, I think kind of defeats whatever I'm saying. Steve-O Supremo, 2-0, haven't used Kittle or Ayuk yet. My fear is that just the offense now? I don't know. And